absolutely acquit him well with a lot of people watching tonight. Governor Tim Walz came out of the box slow, got stronger as it went along, and showed a lot of the qualities that the Democrats liked about him, putting him in the ticket. And absolutely, there are only 35 days left. And the question is not which one of these two men is more appealing, although we'll talk about it. It's going to be which theory of the case of this country resonates with the most. Chris Cuomo here in New York. Thank you for joining us on News Nation. We have the A-team for you: Dan Abrams, Elizabeth Vargas, Chris Stirewalt. We have Bill O'Reilly and Geraldo Rivera waiting for us. We have Leland Vittert, who is at the scene of the debate. So we have it all going. Now, in order to set the table a little bit for what happened tonight, let's show a little bit of the two men in contrast.
Sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it.
I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times. I will say more than anything. Many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Instructive, listening to the guys deal with their gaffes? Maybe. I think that's more for the media, frankly, than it is for you. And the question is, what resonated, what moved the needle, and why? Chris Stirewalt, how'd you see it?
Well, we've got two Midwestern dudes, and we had some sort of Big Ten football here, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, nobody going for the long bombs, nobody making the big plays here. This was a very incremental, and if I can just be lame and say, quite pleasant to have a normal conversation between two human beings who seem to have done some homework, seem to have thought about these things and engage in a normal discussion where policy, can you imagine policy actually coming into the discussion? So good for them.
Also, you know, I think that people, and we're going to go to Bill O'Reilly for a second, and he often will argue that Trump's style, I don't think it's just style. I think that his invective, I think his meanness, I think it's intentional. And I think it's about how he wants people to see the world. Vance was very different. For a guy who's upside down in the polls, right, over 50% unfavorable, tonight, he looked at Governor Walz and said, I didn't know that your 17-year-old had witnessed. Man, God, that's terrible.
I think that threw him, too. I think that threw Governor Walz a little bit. He was expecting the attack dog, right?
That's right.
And instead, he got a very measured J.D. Vance, empathetic.
But can you imagine Donald Trump, no matter what has happened to you, looking at you when he wants to attack you, sees you as a threat to him, and saying, I'm sorry that anything happened to you.
Right.
Anything. I'm sorry a mountain lion attacked your kid. I couldn't imagine him saying about anybody. And Walz saying to Vance, hey, this has been a good debate. Wait, we agree about these things. I mean, I really believe if you had more conversations like tonight, you'll see differences. You'll like things, you'll dislike things. But boy, was it clear that both men there weren't looking to make you hate somebody else. And we did not see that in the presidential debate. Bill O'Reilly, host of the No Spin News, watched tonight. What was your takeaway, big man?
I fell asleep twice.
Because of your age or because of the debate?
Yeah, it was my age. It was pretty tedious, though. I mean, the healthcare stuff was like, I thought they were okay. I thought the debate was much better, as you pointed out, than the presidential debate. But they still dodge. I mean, right off the jump, a simple question, would you support Israel attacking Iran? And Walz just dodged it.
Yeah.
Totally. 100% dodged it. Okay? And I'm going, what's wrong with the moderators when they don't say, You're going to answer the question or not. Can you explain why you won't answer it? See, this is how it all falls down. There's not enough thinking about the audience in these debates. They're all thinking about themselves. The candidates are thinking about themselves, and the moderators are thinking about themselves.
Yeah, it's fair criticism.
And Walz dodged the direct. Yeah, and Walz dodged the direct question about, hey, abortion in the 9th month okay with you? And we're fact-checking the law, by the way, in Minnesota, because that's ill-defined. Vance should have known that law, by the way. That would have been good. And Vance dodged the 2020 election. I said, hey, I want to go look at the future, and, you know, easy question. If you were Pence, would you have certified the electoral vote?
Yeah. And the moderators gave him a pass on the whole eating cats thing also.
Right. Look, I'm not in the business to denigrate Ms. O'Donnell and Ms. Brennan.
Right, they matter the least.
I'm not. But the deterioration of questioning of good, solid television journalism is hurting the nation. So what specifically do you guys want to know? And I will have the answer for you.
I have one specific, and then I hand it off to the better minds. Mine is on the point of what was the first question out of the box, and then they never spoke about it again, even though we are on the verge of a 3-front war in the Middle East, that I don't know what good decision chain there is for the United States, and I don't know any better after listening to these two from tonight. Donald Trump said earlier, Iran should be blown to smithereens for what they just did. Now, that wasn't the context for the question to Vance, okay? He just said, we're going to back our ally. What do you think?
It should have been, though.
Yeah, but what do you think? Forget about even the debate, Bill. I want your take on what is the decision tree for the United States based on what's happening in the Middle East tonight?
To do everything they can to support Israel. You can't have a terrorist state like Iran continue this behavior. You just can't have it. I mean, all throughout history, the heinous nations have had to be confronted. If Israel decides that it's going to go in and take out the 4 ports in the Persian Gulf and strangle Iran, the United States, I wouldn't put troops there. I wouldn't put American planes there to do it. I wouldn't do that. But I would support whatever the Netanyahu government decides to do in defense of their country.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Who's got something for the big man?
I have something for Steyerwalt, and I want to add, I think O'Reilly too, because Bill said something I think that was very interesting about dodging questions, right? I think it's a really important point that Bill's making. But I do think that Vance did a better job of dodging and then trying to answer. Right? So he would dodge and say what he wanted to talk about, and then he would at least make an effort to return to the question that was asked. When I don't think that Vance, I don't think that Walz did that. And look, again, does that matter? Does that make or break the way that the audience? And I think Bill makes a great point about how the audience is going to perceive it. Does that change it? I don't know.
Well, so Walz came in obviously so nervous.
Yeah.
That poor guy was so nervous in the first half hour of the debate. He was absolutely just a wreck. And he eventually settled in and he got there. And for the first hour, Vance, had him. He walked him like a dog. He had him and doing exactly what you say. Absorb, turn it around, and get it back on your talking points. But Walz did, at the very end, flip it on Vance, because Vance's failure on the January 6th question was entire, right? Yep. Vance had an entire failure on the most important question for Donald Trump's running mate.
Also, I think, one of his most effective moments in that 90-minute debate, which, as you accurately point out, he was nervous. I mean, he said he was nervous. The first thing he apparently told Kamala Harris when she picked up the phone to say, "You're my guy," he said, "I got to warn you, I'm a bad debater." He's a bad debater. He's great on the stump, bad on the debate stage. Could be argued that Vance is great on the debate stage, not so hot on the stump. He's been having a hard time.
Well, he's good. He's good. J.D. Vance is very good, has been very, very good at keeping the Republican faithful fired up. He gives them red meat. He talks about eating pets. He tells people what they want to hear. He keeps them cranked up. He does all that stuff. But then tonight he came out and did something very, very important, which is when you're running as Donald Trump's running mate, you want to say, I'll be okay. It'll be okay. He's crazy, wild, but I'll be there and it'll be okay. And J.D. Vance brought that persona tonight until that very last answer.
Bill, does this move the needle at all? I mean, does this, you made the point about the audience, right? Let's look at it from the audience's perspective. Does this have the potential to move the needle?
I'll get to that in a moment. I'm doing a J.D. Vance here, by the way. I'll get to that in a moment. I dissent on your analysis about the 2000 election. I think Vance threw Hillary Clinton in there as an election denier, okay? And that was pretty damn effective because she is an election denier in 16. And that to the Democrats want censorship, which, you know, like that. What J.D. Vance human, unlike Donald Trump, who never does that. And he made himself accessible. I hate that word, but it's a trendy word now, in the sense that you could go up, and I interviewed Vance a few weeks ago, and he answered all the questions, because I don't allow anybody to dodge on my program, the No Spin News. They are not allowed to dodge. I will come in and crush them. All right? So we don't have that problem. But tonight, Vance did his ticket more good than Walz did his ticket. But Walz wasn't bad. He looks like a guy that I'd invite to Thanksgiving dinner. I don't think I'd give him dessert. I'd get him out of there because he'd get a little tedious. But he could have an entree and an appetizer. I'd like to talk to him. But as far as you want to gauge the winner by who helped his ticket more, it was Vance.
Bill O'Reilly, I appreciate you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to reset in about 26 seconds because we're coming to the top of the hour. But I will tell you, it is nice that you saw the two guys having the conversation and there was no open animus. I know that's a low bar. I know that's a low bar. I also think that the two things that were left on the table is the Middle East situation, because I don't think there's a bigger threat to national security. We can make up boogeymen about the southern border, but that and health care, which was an interesting topic that we'll take on, but it's the top of the hour, so we want to reset. Thank you for joining us here at News Nation. Listen, you got a conversation tonight from two people who see what this country needs differently, but you did not get reasons from one or the other to hate the opposition. Isn't that refreshing? Now, we're going to be showing you moments of the Vance-Walz debate, and there were some moments that are going to resonate. The moderators created one, okay? When they were talking, at one point, Vance wanted to correct something about how Haitians got into this country. And he was right, and the moderators wouldn't let him correct it. It's very interesting. Now, to the control room, Paige, do you want to play some sound right now, or do you want to go to Geraldo? Good. Here's a little taste of what happened tonight in the national conversation. That's Geraldo.
Margaret, but thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
Thank you, Senator.
Facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
Well, there you have it. And look, Vance was right, okay? There's nuance to it, but the bigger problem is why he was moved on. We've got so much to get to. Says who? You know what I mean? Like, what is the schedule here? So you have a list of topics? That's not what it's about. It's about how the American people can access these two men and the two theories and the narratives, and you got to let them have their speak, because now you created a story where you're the problem, which is a huge theory of the case for the exact guy that wound up being the subject of that. Will it matter? No, but it'll be in the media cycle. What did matter? Let's go to Leland Vittert, Chief Washington anchor, host of On Balance, live in the spin room, and he has Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. Good to have you.
All right. Good to have you, Chris, as well. Senator, good to see you. Thank you very much. Were you surprised by how cordial it was?
No, because as J.D. said, they wanted to have a debate about ideas, and that's what they did. Unfortunately, Tim Walz has sent out to defend indefensible ideas that Kamala Harris has governed on for the last 4 years, and it's been a core part of her identity as a San Francisco liberal for her entire life. And as J.D. pointed out time and time again, Kamala Harris is trying to portray herself as something she's not. She wants to make you think that she's a moderate, when in reality she is a San Francisco liberal. And if she was going to do all the things she's now promising, she had 4 years to do it. Why hasn't she?
We heard that from J.D. Vance a number of times. I've heard from Republicans over and over and over again throughout this debate, starting at the very beginning, how much they wish it had been J.D. Vance debating Kamala Harris rather than Donald Trump.
Well,
Am I onto something?
No, I thought President Trump did a great job of exposing Kamala Harris's record as well. But tonight, what you saw again was Tim Walz trying to defend an indefensible record. Time and time again. Just take his answer on her energy policy, for instance. She wants to ban fracking. She's always wanted to ban fracking. She's not flip-flopping on that issue. She's lying on the issue. She wants to ban gas-powered cars. She wants to force everyone to have an electric vehicle. She introduced legislation as a senator to do that. She's part of an administration that's currently put a de facto ban on exporting liquefied natural gas, which would create thousands of jobs here at home and support our friends and partners around the world to get them off gas from adversarial nations like Russia. So again, Tim Walz had an impossible job to defend an indefensible record.
All right, and look, perhaps the spin we were getting ahead of time that he was not the greatest debater. You saw it. He at times seemed nervous. He seemed sincere, but the issue that has come up and is a huge issue for the American people we hear over and over and over again: aid to Ukraine, big part of this campaign, and visions for what Ukraine would be like. Confronting China, huge issue that needs to be dealt with, and something that's ravaging your state. Fentanyl, ravaging Ohio, huge killer across America. Not a question on any one of those three topics. Why do you think?
Well, I think it is remarkable there wasn't a single question about China tonight, just like there wasn't in the ABC debate either. I would just point out that both CBS and ABC are owned by movie studios who need access to Chinese movie theaters.
I think it's that simple.
I think that's a lot about it. And I thought J.D. did a good job pointing out Donald Trump's record when it comes to, say, standing up to Chinese cheating on economic agreements, undermining American workers and businesses, the threat that they pose. You didn't hear much of that from Tim Walz. Just like at the very beginning, you didn't hear what Kamala Harris would do after Israel has been hit by almost 200 missiles. Why? Because it happened on her watch. It never happened on Donald Trump's watch. Just like the invasion of Ukraine didn't happen on Donald Trump's watch, because America was respected and feared when Donald Trump was president. Right now, with Kamala Harris in the White House, Uncle Sam has a kick me sign on his back.
Senator, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. Chris, one thing and one thought for you. I was struck by the congeniality of this. It's something that you've talked about so much on air, about sort of the need to return to civil discourse. There was a point there that you thought this was one of the most civil debates, probably the most civil vice presidential debate since Cheney-Lieberman in 2000. I don't remember a single zinger, which is what typically both vice presidential candidates are picked for.
You are 100% correct, my handsome friend. And I hope it was as refreshing to the American people as it was to us. These guys disagreed, and they certainly said, hey, I got problems with what the other person is saying. Nobody gave you reason to hate the opposition. And I think that that is absolutely progress from where we're sitting right now with what we've been used to. Leland, you're spot on about that. And we just heard in his interview with Senator Tom Cotton, them do exactly what CBS set themselves up for tonight, which is to say, you see how they went after Vance and didn't let him finish his point.
Well, that was a moment. I mean, Margaret Kelly cutting his mic and saying, nobody can hear you because we've cut your mic.
Yes. So
as you're trying to simply explain the rest of your answer, which, listen, the Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, are not here illegally. They're here on temporary work visas, invited by the companies that need workers in Springfield, Ohio, a town trying desperately to infuse some life and money
it's just that
into it.
Look, the point is...
He was just trying to finish his answer.
That's exactly right. And
they cut him off.
And they should have let him.
Elizabeth knows this because when we prepped for a debate this cycle earlier, these moderators clearly thought that they were going to be dealing with the kind of pandemonium that they might have gotten from a
But they created the pandemonium.
Right. So they were overmodulated. They came in ready. They're ready to stand up and not get pushed around. And instead, they found these sort of cordial, courtly, gentlemanly fellows up there, and they were mismatched.
Well, it's interesting because people don't really care that much about the moderators. We care, right, about the moderators a lot. I care about the moderators because this is my business.
Senator Tom Cotton is going after the moderators.
I agree. But there was something that struck me as we were listening to them. There was something, I'll give you 2 minutes. It's as if it's theirs, right? There was something about it that felt very...
Really?
Yes. It felt condescending to me that these are the two vice presidential candidates, and you're talking to them as if they work for you.
Listen, getting back to the collegiality and the civility of this discussion,
right,
because as a previous debate moderator, I don't want to wade into anymore. I don't want to criticize. I'll leave that to others. But I do think listen, Vance prepped for this debate, not only with some old friends of his, college friends of his from Cincinnati, Ohio, who flew in to give him the gut check response. This is coming off a little bit this, or this sounds really good. He also prepped with his wife, Usha, heavily. She was in there for all of that. And I think they probably helped soften and modulate a lot of his behavior.
Too much?
Tenor,
was he
tone.
too good?
I don't know.
Was
we'll
he
talk about that in a
giving all the answers
second.
that Trump was supposed to give?
Well, that is a definite yes.
Uh-oh. Now you did it.
No,
you were better off talking about the moderators.
Yeah, he's done.
That.
He's done.
He just sealed his...
All right. Take a pause here for just a second, because we have Senator Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, who's in the spin room to give us his take on how Governor Walz did. Senator, great to have you here tonight. Give us your take on how the governor performed tonight on the debate stage. He seemed a bit nervous off the start.
Yeah, but I think he did great. I mean, really fantastic. He's very plain-spoken. I think he spoke to the American people in a way that they will understand, not like a, Yale-trained microphone for Donald Trump. So I think it went really well on some issues in particular, on women's health care, on border security. And then finally, I would say in the 90th, perhaps the 90th minute of this debate, what we saw from J.D. Vance is that he cannot, even today, cannot stand up for our democratic values and principles. He couldn't even say and give an answer to whether or not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won the last election. And it makes me rather concerned about whether we could find ourselves in a situation again where we have a challenge in certifying the election, and what could happen in the days that follow.
We were just talking, Senator, about how surprised we were by how different J.D. Vance was on that debate stage tonight. He was much less aggressive than he has been. He is a very fast, quick on his feet, as you pointed out, Yale-trained debater. He seemed to modulate and at times even showed empathy, for example, when Governor Walz shared that his own son had been the witness of a mass shooting while he was playing volleyball. It was a different J.D. Vance, I think, than many Americans have seen before.
Yeah, I think that's true.
You
but
know
at the
him
end of the
because
day,
you've been in the Senate with him.
I do. I've been in the Senate since I got there in 2020, and he arrived in 2022. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair observation. But the main issue here is that J.D. Vance was trying unsuccessfully to defend a dangerous agenda from Donald Trump. He is now, I would say, is the poster boy for Project 2025, which is just a really bad deal for the American people on so many different areas, on the economy, on women's health care, on the issue of abortion. Governor Walz, I think, spoke very compassionately about this, how women are dying in our country because of a right that Donald Trump just yanked away from them when he took away the right to make this decision between a woman and her doctor. And J.D. Vance tried to explain where he and the former president is on this issue, but I think it's clear to the American people that they're not standing with women and their health care. They've taken away this right, and in my state, women have bounced back and forth between a bad abortion ban and another.
Right.
And as the governor as the governor spoke, there's a woman that recently died in Georgia because of this.
Right. Senator, I also wanted to quickly ask you about the border, because you were with Kamala Harris, the vice president, when she was visiting the border a few days ago. You are the only swing state that is an active border state with border crossings. J.D. Vance hit Governor Walz and the Harris-Walz ticket hard on the border and on the failure to do more during the first 3.5 years of the Biden administration, and what her policies are going forward. All we've heard in response from Kamala Harris on her debate stage and tonight from Governor Walz is that, yeah, but Donald Trump killed the border bill. When will we hear more about which might be a fair point.
Which is incredibly significant. It is probably the most significant thing that has happened on this issue in decades, that we had the strongest border security deal that Democrats and Republicans and the White House, so Kamala Harris, put together a deal that was going to do so much for Border Patrol agents. It was going to raise their pay. It was going to hire 1,500 more agents, infrastructure, fentanyl detection machines. The way this is supposed to be done is through legislation. And then Donald Trump decided that he needed this for the election. So he told Senate Republicans to walk away from this. And you know what they did, including J.D. Vance? They ran away from it. It is the most hypocritical thing I've seen in 3.5 years working on Capitol Hill in the Senate.
Right, but
I just couldn't believe it.
But Senator, at some point,
Kamala Harris,
what is she going to do if elected?
Well, she made it very clear what she's going to do. If we can pass that legislation, and I am confident that when Donald Trump is out of the picture and he loses this election on November 5th, which he's going to lose, we can bring back that legislation. We can get it passed in the United States Senate. We can pass it in the House. We send it to her desk, and she said she would sign it on day one of her administration. That's what we can do about it. And that's what's going to happen when she wins this election.
Senator Mark Kelly, great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us from the spin room. I know it's crowded and chaotic in there. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thanks so much. You know, J.D. Vance is apparently going to be in the spin room himself. He put up word before the debate that he was going to do that. So.
Better be careful. If people start saying that, boy, this was really refreshing.
He was so
giving
good.
answers I wish I'd heard from Trump. I'm telling you, it does not take much of that to bring out the teeth. I'm just,
and then what happens?
And then what happens? What? Exactly. To what end?
What are they?
You will look. I mean, if you look at what Trump was saying tonight during the debate, if they had put it up at the same time that Vance was answering, Trump would have a problem. Because they'd be like, boy, he better adjust and be more like Vance. And then he will double down on being more of himself. And it'll just create a little bit of a dynamic. I don't know what comes next.
He was talking about Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
I know.
During the
Pete Rose just passed. May he rest in peace. Anyway, let's keep talking about what mattered. We have Tulsi Gabbard. She was mentioned tonight, former Congresswoman from Hawaii and absolutely a political player. So now a member of the Trump transition team. We'll take that on. We'll give you more analysis. But we saw something tonight that I hope surprised you because it was decent conversation that showed you a contrast. Now it's up to you to make your choice. Stay with News Nation. We'll be right back.
What's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him.
As much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. It is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure.
Thank you for joining us again on News Nation. Let's bring in Tulsi Gabbard, former member of Congress from Hawaii, member of the Trump transition team. It's good to see you. Do you agree that this was refreshing in terms of how the two men treated each other and the conversation?
It was. I just wish the moderators didn't get in the way. I think the American people relish and look forward to the opportunity to hear two people who are talking about their different views on issues and the differences and contrasts between the two presidential candidates in this race. I want to point to the clips that you just played because that captured one of the moments that stood out to me, that Tim Walz was talking about how now is a time where we need Kamala Harris's steady hand of leadership, and especially with what we're seeing happening in the Middle East today, he threw out a lot of words that tried to distract away from Kamala Harris's record. Her and Joe Biden's policy on Iran was one word: don't. That was it. Clearly, Iran did not take that seriously. And why would they, when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden opened the floodgates to make Iran have access to over $100 billion of funding that they didn't have access to under President Trump, which enabled them to fund Islamist terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, allowed them to gain hypersonic ballistic missile capability for the first time ever just earlier in 2023. And experts are saying now that Iran is likely to gain nuclear weapons capabilities, potentially even before the next president takes office. J.D. Vance did a great job in contrasting that with making the very clear points about what President Trump's foreign policy resulted in. No new wars, de-escalated tensions, and he did the work that a president is supposed to do in engaging in direct diplomacy in order to accomplish that.
Hey, Tulsi, I'm going to open it up to the floor in a second, but do me a favor while I have you. Aside from the debate, we have not seen the escalation, and frankly, I didn't even see it coming, with Iran firing 200 ballistic missiles, not the kinds of things we're used to seeing from Hezbollah or even Hamas. What do you think the decision chain is for the United States in terms of what you see happening next and what America is going to have to decide is okay or not okay?
Well, I have great concerns about what the decision chain is under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I can't even answer that question for you. And today was a very good case in point of that. As Iran was launching these hundreds of ballistic missiles directly into Israel from Iran, at that very same time, simultaneously, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was calling for them to not launch those missiles, as though he wasn't even aware that that launch had already taken place. So this is one of the many reasons I have grave concerns that even in these coming months heading into this election about our own national security and the fact that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have us embroiled in multiple wars in different regions of the world, and closer to World War III and the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before.
Tulsi Gabbard, this is Elizabeth Vargas here. I wanted to get your reaction to something that Donald Trump said today. He repeated that he thought we should blow Iran to smithereens. Do you agree with that kind of rhetoric and policy? Is that the best way to go at a time when we are on the brink, teetering on the brink of an explosive regional war in the Mideast?
I didn't see President Trump's statement today on that, so I can't comment on it, but I can comment on what I've heard personally from him, as well as what I've heard him repeat over and over again in every single campaign, rally, and event that he has, which is his commitment towards peace, to bring about an end to the wars that have sprung up, with the tensions that have escalated under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And again, I point back to his record as president 4 years ago. Look at the consequences, look at the results. His actions speak for themselves as to what kind of presidency he will have once again, should voters send him back to the White House.
Right. And also, you know, it wasn't just Trump. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said it's, quote, not enough to simply intercept missiles and drones. It's time for the world's leading architects of terror and their proxies to face severe consequences. A lot of voices tonight speaking out in very strong terms about strong action that needs to now be taken against Iran.
Well, there has to be a deliberate thought process and analysis that goes forward. Anyone who is jumping to conclusions to launch any war in any direction should pause and understand what the cost and consequences of that will be. There's no question about the fact that we need strong leadership at this time. Israel is under attack, and they have been under attack for quite some time. Israel is responding to this. The United States supports Israel, and I believe that negotiations and dialogue should go forward in order to see how we can prevent a World War III or an increasingly escalated regional war breaking out.
And just super quick, do you think J.D. Vance did the job he was sent to do tonight on that debate stage? Do you think he won over any undecided or wavering voters?
Yeah, I think he did. You know, I think that the stakes that are placed on all these debates are often placed on them by people in the mainstream media, that whoever has the quote-unquote best performance of the night is somehow therefore more qualified to serve in office. I don't buy that context. What I saw and what I focus on is that J.D. Vance did a great job of delineating the contrast between President Trump's record and his policies and Kamala Harris's failed record and her policies. But this isn't something that he just did as a performance on the debate stage. This is something I've seen him do in the over 100 interviews that he's done with journalists. Some friendly, most adversarial. He does it in his campaign speeches. And you contrast that with Tim Walz, who, other than his kind of puff piece interview that he did with Kamala Harris and CNN, he's done virtually no interviews, answered no serious questions from journalists, and has not held Kamala Harris's record to account. And she has 4 years of a record that they're trying to run away from.
All right. Tulsi Gabbard, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we have Geraldo Rivera. It'll be very interesting to hear the News Nation correspondent at large, the man I refer to as El Rey, the king. How did he see it tonight? And very interestingly, from what he's heard tonight, what does he think moved the needle, if anything? When we come back here on our special coverage at News Nation, the one and only Geraldo Rivera. There he is. Look at him. Handsome. There he is. Say handsome and he looks. I knew it.
He looks better from the profile.
He did. Should be on a coin, that guy.
There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
One of the moments from tonight's debate. Let's check in with Geraldo Rivera, News Nation's correspondent at large. All right, Geraldo, we've been anxiously awaiting your thoughts on the debate, so I'll just leave it open-ended and say, Geraldo, take it away. What'd you make of it?
Well, I think that your talk of congeniality misses the point, with due respect. What this is two guys running to be a heartbeat away from the presidency. So they have to prove that they not only know what they're doing, but believe in what they say they know. And in that regard, there is no doubt in my mind, however Governor Walz did in terms of sincerity, that Vance won this debate. Why did Vance win this debate? For the same reason that Cheney trounced Lieberman when they debated, or Kennedy trounced Nixon when they debated. Because they were not the stereotypes. Walz did come across as the substitute teacher being up against, dealing with the snotty, sharp kid in the class. But Vance didn't just take that stereotype. Vance proved himself to be someone who could moderate his tone, who could be agreeable where necessary. He wasn't the wicked, aggressive, stereotype that the mainstream media has made him out to be. So Vance, to me, propelled, as Cheney did and as Kennedy did, I think Vance propelled himself. And believe me, I don't particularly care for 90% of his policies. And I think Governor Walz is a very, very sweet guy, nice guy, apparently been a good governor and congressman and so forth. But this is, this is business. And I think that in terms of the business of who wins a debate, it's a vice presidential debate, the only one. And, you're nice, okay, maybe this, maybe that. Where was, I think that Vance emerged absolutely unscathed. And I think Walz tread water. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. You know Donald Trump well. We were just talking about this a moment ago. If a lot of people start saying, well, that's the sort of answers that Donald Trump should have given. Or, gosh, if Donald Trump had only been as eloquent as Vance was. Do you think that there is the possibility that there will be pushback against Vance for his success?
Well, I don't think so. Because why? The Republicans were so
Donald Trump wants
nervous about Vance
Because Donald Trump wants to be the center of attention.
Vance proved himself to be someone who could be acceptable to a broader audience than, just the ideological 2025, they let them eat dog guy. He proved himself that, and I don't even like him, but he proved himself to be someone who could fill the role of a statesman. He could go from moderate to less moderate to extreme. He's not just the monotone. Walt's a nice fella. I mean, first of all, he was a deer caught in the headlight for the first half hour. That's okay. He got over it. And he got around to it. And he was good at the last couple of minutes there about January 6th and so forth. And abortion, I thought that he was excellent on as well. In terms of substance. But in terms of who won, who lost, I think Vance was the clear winner today. And I would have said it earlier if O'Reilly didn't object.
Thanks, Geraldo. Always great to hear from you.
You're welcome.
Chris, I'm curious. Vice presidential debates really are inconsequential when it comes to what's going to happen 5 weeks from today. But, the Cheney-Lieberman debate that we cited earlier did move polls 1.2%. And in a race this close, might it matter?
So the John Nance Gardner was the one who said that the vice presidency isn't worth a bucket of warm spit, and he didn't even really say spit.
I know. Thank you for cleaning it up for our audience.
The job politically of a vice presidential candidate is inward facing, which is to keep the base engaged and keep the party engaged. The job of the person at the top of the ticket is to reach out, and the job of the person at the bottom of the ticket is to take care of the home cooking and be in here and do this. What J.D. Vance did tonight that was the most interesting was that he made a message to Nikki Haley kind of Republicans. You did not hear, except for, again, his obvious miss on who won the election, you did not hear through the main of that debate anything from J.D. Vance that sounded wacky or fringy or any of the kind of stuff that he talks about.
He even said when Wells told the story about the woman dying because she couldn't get reproductive health care.
Right.
He even stopped and said she should be alive. She showed real empathy and humanity in that moment.
Kamala Harris picked Tim Walz to solidify the Democratic base because they didn't want Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. They didn't want anybody who was too moderate. She picked Tim Walz because the base liked him and he was good at throwing those zingers. Donald Trump picked J.D. Vance for many weird reasons that did not make political sense at the time. But tonight, J.D. Vance made political sense because what he said, because here's the most important part. Which persuadable voter is watching this, was watching this tonight?
Nobody.
Nobody, right? Nobody who's a toss-up between Trump and Harris is watching this. But you know who is watching it? A bunch of people who say, well, I know I can't vote for Kamala Harris, or I know I can't vote for Donald Trump. Will I actually get out and vote for my typical party, though? And J.D. Vance made an argument tonight that a lot of people who don't like Donald Trump would say, sort of the folks, we heard from Tom Cotton earlier, sort of the folks who would say, I'm comfortable with that kind of republicanism. J.D. Vance did a pretty good impression of that kind of republicanism.
Yeah. Even look, I mean, what's the criticism? The criticism is tonight, but he was saying that Haitians were eating cats 5 minutes ago.
And refusing to apologize for it.
But that's politics, right? And people have a very low bar. Although I must say, and if you disagree, please, I'm sure you'll jump out at once. But I don't buy that any undecided voter is going to say, yeah, Kamala Harris has been there 3 years. Why didn't she get these things done?
Right.
I don't think that anybody sees a vice president.
Everybody knows she was not president.
Any vice president.
But can he give that answer, right? Can he say, what are you talking about? She's not the president, because that's sort of a diss on Biden. Could he have said that in response to any of those questions?
I think he should have.
Well, it's a tough response, right? Because you're kind of dissing the guy at the top.
And then the moderators said, you know, the vice president is normally the last person. Where'd they get that from?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Where'd I'm sure like Obama was like looking at Michelle like, what?
Right,
Were you the VP?
Yeah.
And when Joe Biden was vice president, that wasn't the truth for Joe Biden. He was not an inner circle Obama guy. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden didn't want her near him.
That's right.
Because she was, as it turns out, correctly perceived as a threat.
Right.
Not that she took him out, but that her presence around, and if she was credible, the Democrats would say, oh, what about this guy?
I'll tell you what I'm seeing tonight that's kind of interesting. Look, I don't think Walz had a great night, okay? Let's just be honest. I
don't think he did either.
But it is a little bit of a clue in, just as people are figuring out the theory of the story here. If they had had a real primary, Walz would be more likable to a lot of Democrats than Kamala Harris. His authenticity, right, the avuncular nature, the idea, if they had had a primary, and again, they didn't pick Shapiro.
And then if he got on the debate stage, listen, there are skill sets.
Yes.
Yeah.
But who says she's a great debater? She didn't even make it to Iowa. And she threw Biden under the bus with one of the signature attacks I've ever seen in politics before, where she called him a racist on TV.
True.
With what she did. So I don't know that she has a great skill set either. She was better than Trump. Low bar. But Shapiro, they didn't pick him. I wonder if they're going to worry about that choice with what's happening in the Middle East. Because if you tell me that it had nothing to do with him being Jewish, I don't accept it, okay? It's not what I was hearing at the time, and the idea that she met him and didn't like him, they knew each other. I don't buy it. And now with what's happening in the Middle East, I wonder.
And also, you look at what a nervous Nelly he was at the beginning of the debate, and I kept thinking, oh my goodness.
Well, is he going to have a panic attack or something?
For persuadable voters, his job is to be a hood ornament. And we have to look at this visually, not listen to it. So we're nerds, we're listening to it, we're listening to what was said. We have to, for persuadable voters, not talking about rallying the base, talking about actual persuadables, they each have a job. Tim Walz's job is to be, as Chris Cuomo said, avuncular, reassuring, just like Joe Biden's job to Barack Obama was. It's okay. Boring dads, granddads from Middle
Not on
America.
that first question, though. Yeah. Middle East is the most pressing issue. Not only did he not answer it, he was at his worst in terms of how steady he was. Anyway, what do I know? You tell me. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Jason Miller, senior advisor for the Trump campaign. His analysis next. Jason Miller, senior advisor for the Trump campaigns, joins us here on News Nation. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. J.D. Vance was upside down in his favorable numbers coming in, but he was polite, he was cogent, and he was even deferential at times to Governor Walz. Was that by design?
Well, one of the things that we knew coming in is that most voters don't really know J.D. Vance or Tim Walz at a very strong level. Maybe they tuned in and saw one of the conventions, maybe they saw a couple of clips, but it's important to establish where you're coming from if you want voters to trust you and to follow your lead on how we're going to fix the economy and secure our southern border and turn around all the disasters that Kamala Harris put into place. But I think what we saw tonight was exactly why President Trump picked J.D. Vance. He's a fantastic messenger when it comes to the Trump agenda, and also he's someone who can really point out and take to the woodshed the Democrats who, quite frankly, have bad records. And I tell you, one of the biggest takeaways tonight, I bet you Kamala Harris wishes that she had picked Josh Shapiro.
Well, let's talk about why, right? Shapiro being Jewish to me has always mattered. But with what's happening in the Middle East right now, Walz didn't answer the question of whether or not he would support a strike on Iran. We heard more about the caring about Israel and letting them choose their own destiny and their determination and direction from Vance. But let's talk about it for a second. Where is the Trump administration on what America should be willing to do to Iran, given what they just did to a major ally?
Well, a couple of things here. I think it goes without saying that this wouldn't be happening if President Trump was still in office.
But it is. So what would you do about it?
But hold on one moment. But we know that Iran was broke when President Trump was in office. They didn't have the money to go and fund Hezbollah and Hamas and to lead on with all these terrorist attacks the way that we've seen under the current administration. But what we have to do is make sure that we're standing by Israel. Of course, they're our ally in the region, and especially with the way that Iran, they're not going to stop with Israel. We see the threats that they're making towards the United States. Of course, we see the intelligence reports, information that's been made public about what they want to try to do to American leaders such as President Trump. And so, again, it's a bit of a false binary construct in the sense that it wouldn't have been happening if President Trump was there. But when we get President Trump back in office, he could restore peace to the Middle East, because he's going to make sure that, well, number one, we're going to make sure we get those sanctions back in place. We're not going to ship or free up $100 billion in assets for Iran that they can then go use to fund terror. And so it's, when you come after the United States, you're going to have the full weight of the United States that's going to be bearing down, staring at you. And so, again, deterrence will go back into place with President Trump. After Afghanistan, there's no more deterrence from Kamala Harris and the rest of that administration.
I hear you, but peace through strength. What is strength? Would a Trump administration authorize bombings of Iran from America specifically?
Again, not going to go and answer a hypothetical right now, especially when
it's
it
not
wouldn't
that
have
hypothetical, Jason.
President
I mean, that's
Trump
what we're
being in
staring
office.
at. That's what we're staring at.
But this wouldn't be the place for me to go and announce on cable television.
Well, I don't want you to announce it. I'm just saying, what's the thinking? What's the thinking?
But you understand what I'm saying.
I got you.
The thinking is that we're going to have peace through strength, and deterrence will be restored when President Trump is back. But that's the way that President Trump, keep in mind, how many invasions did we have from Russia going into Ukraine under President Trump? 0. We had it under Biden, had it under Obama. We had everybody in check. We actually brought, the Abraham Accords, peace to the Middle East. We can get that back, but we have to be tough against our adversaries, and we have to make it very clear we're going to stand by our allies. Right now, the state of Israel does not know if they can count on the United States. Joe Biden's at the beach. Kamala's in San Francisco raising money. They're completely checked out, and I think that's disgraceful.
Well, I'll tell you what. If there is a vacuum, it's a good time to fill it. I don't know anything that matters, not the southern border, not even fentanyl, that is as much of an existential threat as what's happening in the Middle East right now. So the more discussion it gets, the better. You're always welcome here to discuss it, as it is for the duration of this election. Jason Miller, thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have final thoughts on what tonight meant and didn't mean, because we got about 35 days to go, but everything changed with what's happening with Iran tonight. Nothing matters more. Next. Appreciate you being with us for another night of witnessing history together. Leland, what are your final thoughts?
Republicans are about as happy tonight after this debate as Democrats were happy after the Kamala Harris debate. And generally, when people walk into the spin room and don't have to spin, they're just happy. That sort of tells you which side, quote unquote, won. Now we wait and see if this debate made any more of a difference than the last debate did. Which is to say, not much.
Mr. Stirewalt?
In an average of high-quality national polls, we don't have anything fresh this week, the presidential race stands nationally at a 1.4% margin for Kamala Harris. This is as tight as we have seen a presidential race in a long time. When we talk about why does this debate matter, why does anything matter, many of these states may be decided by 10,000 votes, 15,000 votes. This is extraordinarily narrow stuff, and they're going to fight for every little bit, and I'm here for it. I don't know whether it's any good for the country, but I sure do love to watch it professionally.
And I think Leland makes a fair point, which is I think any honest broker, if you're going to talk about the winning and the losing, whether it matters is a separate question. But with the winning and the losing, there's no doubt that Donald Trump lost the first debate and Kamala Harris won. I also think there's no doubt that J.D. Vance won this debate and Tim Walz lost. Tim Walz improved at the end. He was better. But in the end, when you look at the person, right, a lot of this isn't about the policy. We can say it's all about the policy. Everyone says, all I care about is the policy. But the truth is, it's a lot about the person.
They only read it for the articles.
Right. But the truth is, it's about who these people are. And J.D. Vance, I think, did a better job of introducing himself in a way that allowed people to identify him in a different way than they might have thought. That he was the attack dog. He was the mean guy. He wasn't that guy today. He was an empathetic guy who did a better job of answering the questions. Now, again, this is minutia, right? We may be saying, come on, this is only the media cares about this. Maybe, but it also
maybe there's 500 voters in Arizona who feel different.
Who feel this. So I think that it was a win for J.D. Vance.
I do think that we have to keep our eye on Israel and the Middle East. I think that we were talking in the break about October surprises. We have what is possibly a consequential, we haven't seen anything like this. I mean, in Israel, they're looking at it as an opportunity they haven't had in 50 years to remake the region. This could be huge. We also have a massive strike of America's ports. That could also be huge. There is so much that could happen that could change the balance and that razor-thin race that we're seeing now unfold. So stay tuned.
Always good to witness history with you guys. I appreciate you being here, but most of all, we appreciate you being here with us at News Nation. So thank you very much. The election continues. What did tonight mean? We don't know, but the only poll that matters is in 35 days. We'll be with you throughout.